Grabe dito sa Makati City, 40 na yung presyo ng buko. You go to Cubao, you get it for 26 pesos. And if you go up to Tagaytay, you can buy buko for 18 pesos or even 16 pesos kung bumili ka na marami. So think about where you're buying your coconuts, especially if you're a big coconut drinker like I am. Hi Kabano, it's Chris Urbano here, and we are talking today about Filipino beverages. I'm going to give you guys my top 5 based on my 2 objective and 1 very much a subjective criteria. Firstly, anong culinary value dito? So the kahalagaan ng pagluluto. Second, of course, is how authentically Filipino is the dish, or in this case, inumin. And of course, third is how tasty is this drink. I'll start off, of course, telling you a little bit about Filipino beverages in general, how they're consumed here in the Philippines. This is a hot tropical country. It's humid outside, and what that means is that most of the drinks you're going to find in the Philippines are cold, they are ice-based, they are fruit-driven, because you're looking for something refreshing in the tropical heat. So number 5 on my list today is Sago at Gulaman. What you need to know about Sago at Gulaman is there's 3 key things. There's the Sago pearls. So Sago is basically, it's not quite tapioca, but kind of a similar concept, but it's coming from the Sago palm, and that's sort of that starch that comes out of the Sago palm is turned into those pearls, whereas tapioca pearls come from cassava root. The second thing in there is Gulaman. Gulaman is often used quite interchangeably with gelatin, and in fact a lot of Sago Gulaman on the street, they are just using gelatin in there instead, because it comes in packets, it's powdered, it's cheap and manufactured, right, to use. But real Gulaman is sort of a carbohydrate derivative from seaweed, and it has some different properties to gelatin. For example, gelatin needs to be in a refrigerator to properly set, whereas Gulaman actually sets at a higher temperature. And likewise, the boiling points are different. So you can kind of dissolve gelatin in hot water, whereas Gulaman needs to be boiling water to dissolve it. So the third key thing that goes into Sago at Gulaman is arnibal, which is the Philippine. It's a brown sugar syrup. You take brown sugar, you make it into a syrup with water, so this sort of thick syrup, and that will be mixed in. Now this is actually a really interesting dish. It looks quite simple, and the taste is really like just sugar syrup with kind of these squishy balls and cubes of stuff in it, and that gets served up on the street, ice cold, normally ladled out of a big container like this, and you ladle that into cups for people and hand that out for 10 pesos, and that's a very good way to quench your thirst. Okay, so number 4 on my list of top Filipino beverages that you should try out is actually hot chocolate. I really enjoyed this in the Philippines because, one, there's an interesting history. This came to the Philippines via Central America and was widely consumed in the Spanish colonial period. Now, the way of preparing hot chocolate here in the Philippines, it's most often sold in these little discs that we call tablia, and each one is kind of good for about a cup of hot chocolate or hot cocoa. So they'll grind the beans up, dry them, shape them into these little tablia discs. Sometimes they're sweetened. I normally tend to buy the non-sweetened pure cocoa ones, because then I can add a bit of sugar, but I can control how much sugar that I would add. And often for me, I like to make mine a little bit more milky, so that's the base, and you kind of cook it off in a bit of boiling water, and then you can add the sugar and milk to your heart's content. When I go to the province in the Philippines, I'm often finding tablia is served as a breakfast food, often with pan de sal or Spanish bread, but really with any ulam, right, as an alternative to coffee. And the taste is absolutely delicious here when you have that native cocoa, only mildly sweetened, and it's masustancia. You feel very warm drinking it. The other thing that I find remarkable about it is it's often paired in the Philippines with fresh fruit. So, for example, having tablia with fresh mango is a really, really cool experience. And that's also a classic pair with suman, which is one of the Philippine kakanin that's like a rice cake. And what you'll do is you'll take that suman, which is sort of a glutinous rice and sugar cake, you'll dip it in a little bit more sugar, you eat it, then you eat the mango. So you get this sweet rice and mango flavor, which is already really cool. And then you finish it with hot chocolate. And you kind of go, wow, that shouldn't work, right? But it works. It sounds a bit funny, but you have to try that out if you come to the Philippines. And just a great way to start the day. So number 3 on my list is buko juice. So this is just basically the juice of a young coconut. You look at my criteria and you go, hang on, what's the culinary value of that? You just like pull it down from a tree. Yes, I'm giving this one like maximum points for taste and being authentically Filipino, because the Philippines is synonymous with coconuts. And around the world, it's basically, there's only 3 countries that matter in producing coconuts: Philippines, Indonesia, and Thailand. And Philippines is, I think, in the top 2 for coconut exports globally. And I think they've got the most delicious coconut. What you need to know about consuming and choosing a coconut here in the Philippines is, firstly, you need to understand the difference between buko and nyog. So nyog is that dark kernel, which is sort of brown and stringy on on the outside, hard inside, and that's used to make things like coconut milk when you kind of grind out the flesh and press it. Buko, on the other hand, is the big green husk, so it's still young coconut, and inside is filled with this coconut liquid, which is a clear liquid, relatively low in sugar. It's actually a fantastic way of rehydrating your body. So you drink that liquid, and it's the best way to hydrate yourself. Now, when it comes to buying a buko, so firstly you want to look for one that's big, green, and when you knock on it, it shouldn't sound too hollow because that suggests that it's not full of volume. You want it to kind of make a more thudding sound when you tap it. If it sounds like you're knocking on a door, then it's probably could be a little bit hollow and the juice has started to reduce inside the coconut. And when it comes to buying a buko, you got to be careful where you buy it because grabe dito sa Makati City, 40 na yung presyo ng buko. You go to Cubao, you get it for 26 pesos. And if you go up to the Tagaytay, you can buy buko for 18 pesos or even 16 pesos kung bumili ka na marami. That's a big difference. So think about where you buy your coconuts, especially if you're a big coconut drinker like I am. Okay, so that is why buko juice is number 3 on my list. Love it. Okay, so number 2 on my list is Filipino fruit punch. This was a beverage that was really introduced to the Philippines, but has been adapted and subsumed into Filipino culinary history. Fruit punch was a very popular choice to serve at receptions at Malacanang during the American period, so post 1901, 1902. This was something that was being served up. And Filipino fruit punch is really interesting as well for what ingredients go in there. So because of the American influence and as more American food imports made their way into the Philippines during that period, you started to see the punch flavored with orange juice and orange rings to make it maganda sa tingnan, as well as apples that are chopped up into cubes and added to the fruit punch. But it's also then blended with things that are iconically Filipino. So it's not a Filipino fruit punch if the base is not pineapple juice. And then Filipinos will normally add a ginger syrup. So you can make that on the stove just by, pounding ginger root and putting some brown sugar and water and boiling that for 5 minutes. I do recommend trying to make it from scratch. Absolutely delicious when you do it that way. So try this one out, and that's why it's number 2 on my list. Okay, here it is, number 1 on my list of top 5 Filipino beverages that you must try is mango shake. The mango is the queen of Filipino fruit, and I think this is by far the best mango, hands down, in the world. Filipino mangoes are amazing. A few interesting facts about this. The best mangoes in the Philippines are said to come from Guimares, which is an island known for its Mangahan festival. They have heaps and heaps of mangoes. They are deliciously sweet. Now, when making mango shakes, you have like a few options in how you do it. Typically, if you're at a hotel or a beach resort, they'll always go with the classic yellow mango shake. They'll often mix that with some milk to make it into a bit more dairy-based product. Now, my preference when making mango shakes is to keep it all about fresh Filipino fruit. So I tend to not use any dairy. I would tend to use buko juice instead of water. So you end up with a mango coconut flavor in there. To the extent I want it to be a bit more creamy, then I'll actually use coconut milk as opposed to cow milk, because I think that just gives a tropical flavor but a more creamy finish. The other way you can do it though is to actually use green mangoes. Because it's still green, it's a lot more sour. Now, you do add sugar to get it sweeter, and it's this sweet-sour combination that is very, very refreshing. So I love to make it at home where I can just control how much sugar and sweetness is going in there and get that perfect asim flavor, and that's why it's my number 1. Okay, mga kabano, so that is my top 5 Filipino beverages that you must try. And leave a comment below. What do you think should have been on the list? Do you agree or disagree with what my top 5 are and why? I'd love to hear from you guys as always. And of course, I'd really appreciate if you can subscribe to the channel so you never miss another episode. I'll see you guys next time. I'm Urbano, live from Makati City. Bye now.